the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, August 1st. We're in August, CJ. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I am joined over the phone by CJ, the Hitman Hitman. CJ, how's it going, bud?
What's going on, man? You're excited. I'm just eating off of it, man.
Man, I could not be more excited. We are finally in August. See, by the time we are on the air again after this show, there will have been NFL football, preseason football, but football nonetheless. And I could not be more excited. We've been
just to wet that whistle, just to wet it just a little bit. You know what I mean?
It's gonna be such a terrible taste of football too. It's gonna be bad, but I mean, what are you gonna do? It's the very first preseason game. I mean, it's football. We haven't seen football since February, so I'm ready. Are you ready? I'm ready.
I'm ready. All
right. Well, we have an amazing show for you guys today. Today we're going to be talking about contract year players. Now, whether you believe in it or not, it's a thing, and there are trends to back it up. So we're going to talk about a number of the bigger name fantasy players who are going into a contract year this year. Therefore, they have something to prove, something to play for. Could be that extra incentive, and if nothing else, definitely a valid reason to act as a tiebreaker when it comes to your rankings. As always, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show. We are on iTunes and Stitcher, on really all over the place. Just search for the show, The Fantasy Football Fanatics Podcast, and you'll probably find us. You can follow the show on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. You can join the community at facebook.com/The Fantasy Football Fanatics. Of course, most importantly of all of these, if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/The Fantasy Football Fanatics. We can get yourself access to bonus perks while supporting the show, helping us keep these lights on, helping us keep recording, helping us keep doing what we are doing. And all you have to do is, head over to Patreon. We greatly appreciate the help, and get yourself bonus perks, including bonus episodes every single week. And of course, the most important news, and I meant to set the date before we started recording the show, but it's coming soon. So if you guys want to get in on this, head over to iTunes and give us a rating, give us a review, because this is the Listener League iTunes Review Challenge. Again, if you want to play against CJ, if you want to play against me, if you want to play against Jason, if you want to play against, I think Ryan's still alive. He might be a part of it. I don't know. Whatever. If you want, I know, right? If you want to play fantasy football against the Fantasy Football Fanatics in 2017, all you have to do, and this could not be easier, head over to iTunes, simply give the show a rating and give it a review. That's it, and then you are automatically submitted to be randomly selected to play against us in fantasy football this season. At the end of your review, please make sure you give us a Twitter handle or an email address so we can reach you if you are selected. We've been getting quite a few in lately where people are forgetting to add that tag. We greatly appreciate the feedback, but if you're randomly selected, we're not going to be able to reach you. So make sure you end your review with an iTunes tag or handle, I should say, or an email address. That's it. With that, let's go ahead and move into our warm-up question of the day, which has to do with the fact that preseason is right around the corner. Simply, the question is, what are you most excited to see happen during the game? Are you excited to just see a single drive of offense from either team? Are you excited to see just football in general? Is there any in particular players that you are watching or any trends that you are interested in? What are you looking for, CJ?
Well, you're just talking about in general or just this upcoming Thursday game?
This upcoming Thursday game, because, we'll talk again before then.
Okay, well, this upcoming Thursday game, it just once again be nice to just look at football again. You know what I mean? Just have something going on. This is a dead area for sports. I'm not really a baseball guy, so, to be able to watch football again, that's going to be a good thing. I want to be able to look at Jason's boy, that wide receiver that they got that's supposed to be Larry Fitzgerald's replacement, to be able to get some eyes on him and see what kind of guy this guy's going to be. And then, see, Dallas and see what, that defense, to see what they had a couple pieces last year that were hurt that I can see them probably going to get significant playing time, going forward for the rest of these preseason games. So just get some eyes on them, because, that's the vision. So I got to make sure they're doing bad and everything,
Oh, absolutely. I guess I should have mentioned, Jason Cabrera not with the show today, 2-man show. He had family things to take care of. He's a father of 2, so I guess sometimes duty calls, maybe literal duty. Yeah. But in general, for me, joke. I know that I did it in honor of Jason, a nice dad joke. For me, I'm excited to see a number of things. I mean, obviously the starters. Who knows if we see them more than a single set of downs. But, it's going to be interesting to see the guys who are coming out here, especially on the Dallas side, backing up Ezekiel Elliott. Because, as we'll get to in the news, still no word as to the possible disciplinary action that he could be facing. But there's going to be a number of guys behind them, which I have to say the situation is pretty cloudy right now. Look from the outside looking in, so to have having any sort of opportunity to find some clarity would be amazing. Seeing if the offensive line seems to be gelling. It was a little bit jumbled on the Dallas side. Pass catchers hasn't really changed. Making sure Dak Prescott, at the quarterback position, is able to still seem to be that guy. Sophomore slumps are a thing. I don't think we're going to see a slump in the Hall of Fame game, the bonus fifth game for these both of these teams in preseason. Or again, I don't know how much we're going to see either one of these starting offenses. And I agree. Jason's Cardinals. David Johnson, same thing. We're going to see him, maybe, not at all. It would be good to see Carson Palmer getting on the page with some of these other wide receivers, especially with everybody being healthy, the offensive line being healthy, Carson Palmer being healthy. But, it's preseason. So, vanilla offense versus vanilla defense for a very limited set of snaps, which is why we all like week 3 of the preseason, because at least then we at least get a half from the starters. So, yeah. We'll see, even if it is basic vanilla. It's one of those things, too, where this is kind of moving on from the point. We could get into the IDP players, but, we won't. Well, that's more of a Patreon show. But it's one of those things where we're going to be so excited for football, and then we're going to get, halfway through the first quarter and be so incredibly bored because it's such basic offenses and defenses. And by the second half, it's going to be all players that you've never heard of. You'll most likely, for the vast majority of them, never hear of them again because a lot of them are going to start getting cut. And that's the sad thing of why this is the worst time of year. All these teams are going to be cutting these players, and their dreams of playing football are coming to an end. So it's sad, but that's the business. They can only have a 53-man roster, and right now they're upwards of 100. So what were we going to say, CJ?
Yeah. I'm about to say this is their dream, but like the NBA, NFL is starting to come with a lot more opportunities for these type of players to find gigs. Arena football is starting to become a real big thing. Of course, you got the Canadian Football League, and then their flag football league that's getting ready to start off, and then this kind of like D League that they're looking to come up with in a couple of years. So these players, they still get their opportunities later down the road and be able to still play this game and still make some decent money.
Yeah, they seem to be trying to manufacture kind of like how Major League Baseball has, the pros and then all these multi-division, basically, I don't know what the right word to describe it.
D-League. It's like a D-League.
Yeah, the minor leagues. That's what it is. They're trying to do like minor league football potentially down the line, which would give these guys an opportunity to develop and still realize their NFL dream, in future years. So we'll see how that plays out. Of course, all the rumors of expansions being, a possibility in the not too crazy distant future as well is also upside for these guys. What are you gonna say?
Man. No, I was agreeing with you. I was just saying, yeah.
All right. So, kind of went on a side rant there. Not necessarily anything that has to do with 2017 football, but, it's good stuff. And, football. Guys, football will have been played by the time we're back. And as boring as the game may or may not be, at least we'll have seen some new snaps for the 2017 season, so that's exciting. With that, let's go ahead and move into our top headlines from around the league. Now, we could spend the entire hour on the different headlines that are coming out, but as we tried to maneuver through the offseason to this point, getting through all the I don't want to use the term fake news because that just feels wrong to say during.
What about the fluff? Let's get through all the fluff,
all the tropes, all the misdirection, all the stuff that they're trying to get you on people's hype trains. Trying to get you off the trail of what they are or aren't doing. I think we very successfully navigated all of that this point through the season. And we're trying to keep that going as well because, I could be telling you all about how every single player on almost every team is looking fantastic. Yay. Oh, how exciting. But, only so much of it is real and only so much of it applies to fantasy football. So we're going to, again, try and cut through, give you guys the important bits that stood out to us. So we're going to move right into some running back news where NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, I can never say his name, Pelissero, I think. He reports that the NFL will not announce a decision on Ezekiel Elliott's potential discipline this week. So we have to go yet another potential week before we know. So, I mean, man, we always
can't ruin the Hall of Fame game. Can't ruin that.
Or could they? But, I mean, this is why we preach wait to draft.
Yeah.
Holy crap, wait to draft. And hopefully, most teams we recommend drafting after the third preseason game through, that 2-week period leading up to the first week of the regular season. Obviously, week 1 of fantasy football. That's kind of the prime time to be drafting. So, hopefully this is decided within the next 3 weeks because you're going to have to be making some serious gambles for a guy who could be potentially suspended upwards of 6 games, which, as we've discussed previously on the show, that affects his status in our rankings, and we're going to be getting to our rankings in the very near future. So we're hopefully we have some clarity by the time we get to that, and we can give you guys accurate stuff, or we'll just have to talk about disclaimers. CJ, what are your thoughts on the fact that we still don't have news on Ezekiel Elliott's potential disciplinary actions?
I mean, I've kept an eye on this and then listened to other reporters and what they look and fantasy analysts what they're saying. I mean, the max to 6, yes, that's very concerning. But from what I'm hearing, I mean, it's probably 3 games tops. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, then I think that wherever you have him ranked, you can probably still keep him there. I mean, it's only 3 games. That's why you draft your second running back, and then you have your bench, and you can plug those guys have them plug and play there while he's serving his suspension, just like Doug Martin is going to do, just like Tom Brady had to serve it last year. And if you those type of people that drafted those players, you still were good at the end of the season because Brady had an excellent year, and Doug Martin is projected to have a great year this year. So I think it's a risk. If I'm drafting Ezekiel Elliott, I'm willing to take, but I don't really see it going past 6 games. And if it does, then yeah, that's really concerning. Then you got to switch some stuff up.
Well, I think we've said, and I believe Jason was of the same mindset, that if he misses 3 games, you're gonna have to start making tweaks. But I think that if you miss, I have to go back and look at the stats as I had them worked out. But I think at missing 3 games, he falls right in line with the next tier of running backs for me. But like you also said, look at Tom Brady. He set the world on fire. He put out a very consistent, very good pace. And though he didn't finish as a top 3 quarterback, if you projected him out over the entire season, he finished as, I think it was the quarterback 2. So yeah, you have to take into account that you're not going to have the guy for 3-4 weeks, but when he comes back, he's still going to be that guy who we were projecting as a top 3 fantasy option. So right. It comes down to less overreaction to the suspension, because I think people learned their lesson last year where everyone freaked out over Le'Veon Bell, and he ended up dropping outside of the 2nd round in some leagues, and people who snatched him up, man, they got themselves a season-winning performer. Great right. Deal. Massive, amazing bargain. And, it comes down to, looking at and we talk about this a lot, where it comes to looking at the end-of-season numbers as opposed to knowing what happened in the season that led to that production. Because, same thing that happened with Le'Veon Bell. If you projected him out over a full season, he finished higher than he did, obviously, because he had more games. So, yes, Ezekiel Elliott, he 3 games was that threshold where I'm toying with moving him down. I would want to get him instead of top 3. Obviously, I'd want to get him at the end of the first, but I think he's still a first-round pick. If he misses 4 games or more, I think he has to drop into the 2nd round because that's just a sizable chunk. But again, you don't want to, he's missing 4 games. Oh, no, I have to drop him out of the first 3 rounds of my draft because that's an overreaction. So,
yeah.
We will have a lot of, because it's all speculation at this point. We could go into every single game he misses, how that would affect us, but that's a whole conversation we could get into. But it's something to watch, and the number of games will affect his status in our rankings and our tiers. But you can't definitively say that because, for me personally, I stat them out. I have an amount of points per game, and if he misses 3 or 4 games, and the math could attest to him moving down the rankings. Remains to be seen because we don't know how many games it is. I'm not going to do 7 different equations for the sake of what if. But I guess I could. It wouldn't be incredibly difficult, but we'll see. We should hopefully have clarity on this very soon. I can't talk. So let's go and move on to the Green Bay Packers, where Green Bay head coach Mike McCarthy has said that Ty Montgomery is a, quote, full threat, end quote. CJ, what is your gut reaction when you hear that Ty Montgomery is a full threat?
I am wondering full threat in what? Full threat is running game? Full threat in the passing game? Because, I've said a lot of times on this show that, Ty Montgomery, I agree with you guys' concern, but if he has the opportunity this whole offseason to get his body in shape to play the running back position, I think the performance that you saw this guy towards the middle of the season when they made the switch and even going to the playoffs, he has the talent. The talent is there. He was an incredible mismatch, and if you had him on your team, he was getting you points. The only concerns was his health, his body. Can his body be able to take that abuse when it comes to the running back position? He has to put on weight. He has to go ahead and get more muscle on his body. So if he did do that, then I think this is some good news you want to be able to hear. It's coach talk, but it's the coach talk that you want to hear because it basically just verifies and clarifies what you feel about Ty Montgomery and your belief in him.
I agree. So for me, this was intriguing enough to make it onto our show doc, but I also felt like this was a pretty serious offseason trope because, we've been talking about how much we love Jamal Williams behind him as the potential guy there. And, a lot of negative things because, look, I don't know how much I want to get into this because we've talked about this extensively in the past, but Ty Montgomery, he's a converted wide receiver. He played very good at running back when healthy last year, but he also was not able to, like we said, stay healthy, but also was not able to protect Aaron Rodgers effectively, and that's because he doesn't have a lot of experience at the running back position, picking up blitzes, things of that nature. Like you said, in the postseason, he turned it up a little bit. He had 11 rushing attempts both games, but in the entire season, he only had one game where he got to, and this is regular season, of course, in the entire regular season, he only had one game where he reached double-digit touches, or rushing attempts, I should say. So he's going to have to really pick it up for this to be a vote of confidence that I'm going to buy into. I'm concerned about him being pulled because of blocking assignments. I'm worried about him being pulled because of potential injury. I'm worried about him being pulled because they're going to be doing what the Packers do, and they throw a lot in the red zone. But, if there's going to be a pass-catching back, it would be Ty Montgomery. So, on one hand, I get his draft stock, but on the other hand, I'm still really, and this goes back to Friday's show, I'm still very high on drafting the rookies behind him because they are incredible steals for players who could very easily assume the starting role relatively early in the season. So, I don't know. CJ,
you might have to pick up both of them in the draft. If you want a part of this Green Bay running game, you might have to pick up both.
Truer words have not been spoken because it's a very real possibility, and you got to do what you got to do. But I'll put it to you this way, CJ: what round are you comfortable drafting Ty Montgomery? Because I think you're higher on him than I am.
Ty Montgomery, I would probably look to get him maybe 5th, 6th round for me.
Okay, and that kind of proves my point because he's currently going in the 3rd round. I am not burning a 3rd-round pick on Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, not for me.
There's so much concern. There's so much reason to go around it. He's going as the 17th running back off the board, so he is going as a running back 2, which I think best case scenario, that's what you should do with all the uncertainty. And what we saw last season, of course, it's been an off season, things change, but we have. That's why I'm excited to get into the preseason a little bit to see what they do. But I'm just not spending a third-round pick on Ty Montgomery. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. I would much rather take the double-digit flyer on the rookie behind him. So, and I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to look back at the end of the season and see how this all plays out, because it's a very confusing spot right now. So let's go and move on, though. We have Jay Ajayi, who was spotted walking into the locker room with team personnel during yesterday's practice, so that was on Monday. This was reported to be a concussion. No real official word from the team as of this recording, but reports have said that it did come from a hit from TJ McDonald during 11-on-11 drills. So, CJ, what are your thoughts on Jay Ajayi getting concussed in the early training camp?
I don't want to praise a concussion, but I'd rather it be, early in camp than closer to, say, the last preseason game or, week 3 preseason game and this going on. So, I think it's still early that he can be able to recover from it, be able to sit down and, probably be ready for, if they want to give him some work to just get the rust off from that third preseason game, get him in there. But I think this is still good news. Okay, so I'm borderline because I don't want to say I'm praising the concussion to being early, but I'm just saying you don't have to overreact about it because it has happened early. He can still have time to recover for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I agree. Bottom line is we don't know the severity of the concussion yet because as of this recording, we haven't gotten official word one way or another. But concussions are serious. That's been the whole thing with the NFL for a very long time. You don't want to see your star players getting laid out in the middle of practice, so I'm sure that Miami's not happy. Us as fantasy fans are not necessarily happy because this is a guy people are drafting high. He's going as the 7th running back being selected in the end of the first round. You're burning a first-round pick on this guy. Injuries have been a concern with him, and now here he is in preseason dealing with a concussion, which with the varying degrees, some people could come back, they're back within a week. Some people have look at Michael Orr, who was released by the Panthers, their left tackle. He got a concussion last season, and still, to this day, is showing concussion symptoms. So, it's a very dangerous thing to be playing with. So, on one hand, I'm glad it wasn't like an ACL or anything because, this is a guy that we always talk about how he's kind of a ticking time bomb genetically with his knees and things like that. But freak athlete, crazy talented. We saw what he can do when healthy and when he's got an offensive line, which is why he's going as a first-round pick. But, bottom line, by the time we record on Friday, we'll know more. I, like you, am going to hesitantly say I'm glad it happened now because he still has a good month to come back from it. So, not praising the concussion, but, happy that it happened really early on so there's more time to get back. So, having to pick our words carefully. We don't want to endorse concussions here on the Fantasy Football Fanatics.
We got to tread lightly.
Treading lightly, yes.
We're like a tobacco commercial, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Treading real lightly right now.
Yes. Enjoy, you don't want tobacco? Well, how about these vaporizers with nicotine? Okay, anyway, off topic.
Like that Family Guy episode is like smoke.
Smoke.
You guys smoking yet?
And then he's in the room with them. Smoke. Okay, thank you. Oh, man, I haven't seen that in so long. Okay, sidetrack. Anyway, keep moving. Anyway, the Detroit Lions website has stated that Amir Abdullah could handle, quote, somewhere in the neighborhood, why can't I talk? Quote, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 carries this season. So I would say that's not a huge workload, but in a backfield with as many running backs as there is right now, are you excited by this news, or are you kind of disappointed to hear that 200 carries is kind of what the threshold of what they're trying to get him to?
Well, first of all, he's coming back off an injury, so that's kind of exciting because, like we said before, I believe that this organization believes in this guy, but, he has to be healthy and be able to be there to be able to perform. So 200 carries, I would say that's a good start. That's a good start. They didn't say anything about him being involved in the passing game because he's definitely a beast when it comes to receiving. When he debuted a couple years ago in the preseason, we can definitely see that. So I mean, I think this is good. This is somewhat good news that you can be able to stand on if you're a Mirabella fan.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this a lot previously, where you've got your where we think he's going to be one of those guys who could be a running back 2, running back 1 upside type player for you, and those guys generally they gets over 200 touches, over 200 carries. Maybe Amir Abdullah's not that guy. We know he's versatile. He can be very easily used in the passing game. We think he's crazy talented, but injuries have been the concern. Maybe they're trying to temper expectations because they're trying to keep him from getting hurt. Who knows? But, I mean, then we talk about the really elite guys who get 300-plus rushing attempts, and that's why this is kind of intriguing to me, because last year, who do you think... So the rushing leader was Theo Riddick last year. How many rushing attempts do you think Theo Riddick had without looking?
Without looking, I would say probably about 270 to 290 around the range.
No, I mean, there was a lot of injuries to the position, and there was a kind of rotating door, so he didn't get there. But, that's the perspective. He was healthy throughout the year. He had 92 rushing attempts. Wow. This is a team that throws and throws and throws, and then they kind of throw some more. So they had almost 600 passing attempts, but only 350 rushing attempts for the entire position group, of which they had 9 different guys carry the ball. So Theo Riddick had 92 attempts. Dwayne Washington had 90. Zach Zenner had 88, and then it's much, much lower from there, a drop-off. So... on one hand, I think this is a great vote of confidence for Amir Abdullah, and maybe this is just again their cautious workload that they want to give him. But as Jason always likes to say, if he gets to be the hot hand and he gets going and he stays healthy, there's no reason he doesn't get more than this. So I take this news as just because of the history where they didn't even have a 100-yard or 100 attempt rusher last year. I take this as good news, where I think you could very easily take it as bad news, but you hope that he's not capped off there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Last bit of running back news. The NFL.com's Mark Sessler has reported that Christian McCaffrey is, quote, unstoppable at camp. So, what are your thoughts here? I mean, Mark Sessler is pretty well respected, not necessarily a fantasy analyst, but some interesting takes here on a guy that
he's got his fantasy corner. I mean,
he does have his fantasy corner. That's true. So, we've gone on extensively about how Christian McCaffrey is going to be a complementary piece. They're going to try and make him into a focal point of the offense, but he's going to be in a running back committee and probably not the lead back in Carolina. So, what are your thoughts when you hear this?
Well, I can see him giving Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly some problems. I mean, he's a small, elusive back. Very, very athletic. Got quick agility. It's a trope, but I'm trying to respect Mark Sessler because I do like him, but it's a little bit of a trope. But I mean, you look at the kid. I mean, you got to go back and just look at the kid's tape at Stanford, man. The guy is super talented. Between the tackles, outside passing game, he can be a force. He can be an impact player. That's why I like him on the Panthers, especially with this new mode and model they want Cam Newton to be able to follow, to be able to get the most out of him with that contract. You know what I'm saying? So I can see Cam. When it comes to Cam-wise, with his numbers, I see his numbers being the best that it's ever been because he has a lot of talent around him that can be able to take advantage of that short passing game and get yards after the catch. With McCaffrey and that kid Samuel, I think those two guys are going to be really big impact players for Cam. And then plus, you can't deny his legs. Like I said, a dog you can't teach a dog a new trick. But I can see Cam, he's not going to let that run stuff go. He's going to I think he'll take his shot. But but to come back to the question, I think this is good news because you knew that they drafted McCaffrey high for a reason and that he was going to be an impact player, and I think it's going to be a lot sooner than later.
Well, like we said, and you said, he was a top 10 pick, so they're going to use him. They're going to try, and this is why everybody hated this pick, because a very uncreative offense, very vanilla with Ron Rivera. But, I mean, when you get a talent like Christian McCaffrey, and you burn that high of a pick, you're going to find ways to use him. But Jonathan Stewart, we all think, is going to be the lead back there. He's going to be the first, second down back, and we think that Christian McCaffrey is going to be that third place, maybe 2 running back set, dump it off type guy. They're going to find very creative ways to use him. I honestly expect to see Christian McCaffrey line up everywhere from tailback to out wide. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but as a whole, unstoppable maybe a bit much. But I mean, it's good news, because I mean they're gonna have to be creative with this guy to get him production. But because it's gonna be so reliant on their creativity and finding all these different ways to use him, because Jonathan Stewart had 218 rushing attempts last year, and I think that was kind of a down year for him. I could honestly see him getting even more than that if they hadn't drafted Christian McCaffrey. Because they're trying to, as you kind of mentioned, take the ball out of Cam Newton's hands. They want him passing or handing it off. They don't want him rushing anymore. And even with the down year he had last year, Cam Newton had 90 rushing attempts. So I know that that's something that the team does not want repeated anymore, but he's not a pocket passer. I think a lot of analysts would say that he is a below average pocket passing quarterback. Accuracy, downfield threat, and of course it's his legs that have always set up the pass. But if he's not running, then it becomes less likely he does that. So I think he's going to do a lot more dump off stuff, which is going to be really good for Christian McCaffrey, as we've talked about a lot in the past. But this is another team that I can't wait to see in preseason, because though it will be very vanilla, we will get some looks at kind of what they're working on and how they're going to use him. Like if we see Christian McCaffrey line up out wide and he's going deep, I think his draft stocks are going to skyrocket, and I think we see this every year. Player X has a really big play in the preseason, all of a sudden he makes like a 2-round jump, and he's not worth it. We spent a whole offseason analyzing these players and trying to figure out where they rank and where they should go. And 99% of the time, all that work tends to be the much more accurate turnaround than the guy who had one breakout play in the preseason. I mean, look at Tajay Sharp last offseason, where he was having a great preseason, and then he ended up being basically useless during the regular NFL season. So, sidetracks there. So, anything you want to add to Christian McCaffrey before we move on?
Yeah, I think we tackled everything.
All right. So far. No real wide receiver news that we felt that was really worth reporting. One thing to point out, injury-wise, at the tight end position, Eric Ebron did suffer a hamstring injury during Sunday's practice. No timetable on his turnaround. Soft tissue injury. Most likely not severe, but these things are known to linger, so something to take into account if you're in a deeper league. And in a little bit of other news, and this is actually kind of concerning, Jacksonville Jaguars left tackle Brandon Albert randomly, out of nowhere seemingly, caught a lot of people by surprise. He decided to retire from football. Now, he played for 9 seasons. He played for the Miami Dolphins for the last 3 before being traded to Jacksonville. He played his first 6 seasons in Kansas City. This is a guy that was traded for by the Jacksonville Jaguars, trying to shore up that left tackle position, especially after they let their previous left tackle walk during free agency. So, and of course, we're talking about Kevin Beacham there. So, CJ, they lose their left tackle. They don't have Julius Thomas at tight end anymore. This offensive line was somewhat suspect to begin with. Does this downgrade Leonard Fournette to you? And the passing game, do you think Blake Bortles takes a hit here?
Blake Bortles, he's definitely. This is definitely questionable for Blake Bortles. I mean, you already were very leery about him when it comes to the passing game, anyway. I mean, just with what you saw, and I haven't really been hearing anything good out of camp when it comes to this guy. But they did address this position in the draft. They went and get that guy Cam Robinson. So he's a rook. He's gonna have to next man up. That's gonna be him. And then as far as the running game, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that, Leonard Fournette, he's built a relationship with those guys. I know he's probably got some looks with Cam Robinson playing that right tackle position. I'm sorry. So I think he can be able to. I mean, left tackle position. I still think Leonard Fournette's still going to be a beast. I still think that he can be able to be productive in offense. The guy that's nervous to me about this is Blake Bortles. You know, I mean, just to be able to see him, you know, not turning the ball over. I mean, the dude is already in camp, turned the ball over in one practice 5 times already. That is not good at all.
I did see that report, which is kind of scary. But we also think that they have a very scary defense. So maybe that's par for the course. It's unfortunate to see because this is a team that seems like they're finally starting to get all their pieces in line. And we've been saying this for the last couple of years. But, I mean, it keeps progressing that way. Sooner or later, you have to assume it's going to break the correct way. But and that was a horrible way of describing it, but you get my meaning. Yes, I don't really downgrade Leonard Fournette here because, as we talk about a lot, it's really the offensive guards that have a bigger impact in the running game, and the tackles are much more for pass protection, unless you're doing a lot of stretch schemes. Leonard Fournette's not really that guy. He's a north-south just bully of a runner. I mean, you know, he's Adrian Peterson type build and running style. So I don't see this as a huge downgrade for Leonard Fournette. And Cam Robinson, by a lot of early indications, besides the fact he was always described as, quote, a mountain of a man. So, I mean, he's a big guy. I mean, this is a 6'6" left tackle. Have to put on size and work on getting to the NFL level. But I'm more concerned, like you, for Blake Bortles here. This is more commonly a pass protection problem, protecting the blind side. And, you know, Blake Bortles, he was having problems getting the ball out last year. So, I mean, will they make adjustments for this? Absolutely. Will they come up with quicker releases and quicker plays to try and get the ball out of his hands more rapidly? Yes. If Leonard Fournette gets going and he's able to be productive, will that take pressure off the quarterback, in this case Blake Bortles? Yes. If Cam Robinson turns out to be worth that early second-round pick, some people said he was a first-round talent, which slipped down into the second. I mean, could that be the case? And, I mean, he ends up filling in nicely, better than maybe even Brandon Albert ever would have. Yes, it's possible. I'm not freaking out here, but it is a situation that I am paying attention to, both out of sheer curiosity and absolute necessity, because, you know, this has repercussions down the line. This also affects your Allen Robinsons of the world. So it's things to watch, things to definitely keep an eye on. But if you start seeing Blake Bortles getting laid out in preseason week 3, take that very seriously.
Yeah, take that to account.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge indicator.
The line does not believe in him.
Yeah, the offensive line isn't able to protect against vanilla defenses and vanilla pass rushes. That's a problem. So we'll see. This is very early on, and I mean, this is something that nobody was really anticipating because we all thought Brandon Albert was going to be the starter there, at least at the beginning of the year. And so it's a curveball for sure. So we'll keep our eye on this and report back as we learn more. So with that wraps up our top headlines. Let's move into a review. So CJ, why don't you take away this iTunes review that we got?
Okay, our iTunes review is Just Say Anything iTunes 5-star.
Woo.
It's a review that says top notch. You know what I'm saying? Love it, guys. Keep on keeping on. I appreciate it. It was short, sweet. You know what I'm saying? Stayed straight to the subject, and it was 5 stars. So, hey, guys, appreciate you.
We appreciate the love and the support. I mean, Just Say Anything, whoever you are out there. Didn't leave us a Twitter handle or an email address, so I don't know if you were interested in playing fantasy against us. But no matter what, we love the feedback. If you just wanted to give us feedback, hey, greatly appreciate it. It helps the show out so much more than we could ever possibly describe. So appreciate it. With that, let's move on to our topic of the day, why you are all here to begin with, and we are going into our contract year players. Now, of course, we have all these players who are going into contract year, some of them for various reasons. Some of them are coming at the end of their deal. Some of them have made adjustments or signed new contracts to put them on one-year deals. Some of them are on just trial, basically one-year deals. Some of them are on franchise tags. You name it. So these are all players who going into 2018 will be in need of a new contract. And we can talk about the repercussions and the impacts for fantasy, their motivations, and of course, how that could potentially work out nicely for us here in fantasy. So we'll run down position by position as we always do. We'll start at the quarterback position. So some of the much more notable guys, of course, we have Sam Bradford. We have Drew Brees. Drew Brees did sign a long contract, but he ended up then signing a one-year deal. They're trying to work out a new long-term kind of situation for him, so we'll get into that a little bit more. Matthew Stafford, and of course, we've covered it extensively, Kirk Cousins. So let's go down the list here. So we have Sam Bradford here. What, of course, are the repercussions here? Sam Bradford, is he playing for a job or is he playing for a new contract? Because, we've heard a lot of rumors about the whole Teddy Bridgewater situation there.
I think he's playing for a new contract. I think he likes the situation down there in Minnesota, and on paper they really got a nice situation. I mean, you got young wide receivers. I mean, Sam Bradford made a guy, Adam Thielen, a fantasy relevant wide receiver, a guy that we didn't know nothing about until Sammy V started getting a hold of him. So that's a good positive thing. He just got Devin Cook. I'm sorry. They just drafted him. He's going to be a standout, and he's taking advantage of the opportunity that's presented to him while Latavius Murray's being hurt. And then you got Kyle Rudolph. A guy that we've been wanting to take that next step in this offense as a tight end, and through all those quarterbacks before, it just never seemed to pan out. Even with Teddy Bridgewater, it was really very vanilla, very underwhelming. But when Sam Bradford comes to the mix, his track record with tight ends, he put Kyle Rudolph in the position where he needs to be. So I think Sam Bradford has the opportunity this year to, play good just like he did last year, but have another year in the system, another year with building chemistry with his players and be able to put up good fantasy numbers and all those other positions that we like in this offense, that we can be able to benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he was traded for at the beginning of the season. He ended up coming in week 2, and he had to work in. He had to learn the offense. He had to build this rapport with the wide receivers and the offensive line and everybody on the fly. And he did a great job. Honestly, there's no way to deny that. So he signed a 2-year deal. He's on the second year of that deal today. And, of course, he signed this deal with the Eagles, and then the trade ended up happening. But Teddy Bridgewater, as we know, they did not decide to pick up the 5th-year option on his contract. So Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, we can talk about both these guys, actually. So Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater. What do you think ends up happening here? Because this obviously, Teddy Bridgewater, they don't know if he's ever going to play again. I mean, we keep hearing all this stuff about how he's moving, he's throwing, but he's not game ready. He's not NFL pace ready. So if he ends up coming back and being able to return to the field and compete for a job, do you think he gets like a minimum contract for 1 year and then they sign Sam Bradford and Teddy becomes the backup? Do you think that they sign both these guys to a prove-it contract? I mean, it's one of the more intriguing quarterback situations in the league right now because they've got two guys who are pretty good, both first-round picks, and both that are competing for the same job here. So, what are your thoughts on how things play out at the end of this season? Let's say that Sam Bradford goes out there and he builds on last year and he has a very good second year in Minnesota. What do you think the Vikings plan to do after this season?
I mean, this is tough for the Vikings. I don't see in this scenario either way where they can keep both, to be honest. I think, if Sam Bradford does like what we expect him to do, have a good year out there, I think they're going to sign him to a long-year deal. And then, with the other pieces you got coming up, I mean, you still got Eric Kendricks you got to sign. You just re-signed Everson Griffin to a deal. That was lucrative. And you got other pieces. You just got Xavier Rhodes contract. So it's not like money's growing on trees in Minnesota. They got to be able to put this money into good places and stretch it out. So I think Teddy is he's probably going to enter that free agency next year. With those other wide receivers, the other quarterbacks. And I think he'll probably find a gig outside of that, but I don't think he's going to be on this Minnesota team next year.
Well, I mean, it boils down to also that because the Vikings don't know what to expect, and they have obviously the first, second, third opportunity to look at Teddy and his progression and how he's doing. I honestly don't think he's leaving. I think he's going to get a veteran minimum contract. I think it's going to be a prove-it deal. I think they're going to let these guys battle out in camp, and then they'll kind of progress from there. I mean, Sam Bradford, he's earned that starting job, especially if he has a very good year this year. But so they're going to want to re-sign him because they know what they'll have in him. And then Teddy Bridgewater, he's that dark horse guy who could potentially come back and get his job back. I just don't think that any other teams around the league are going to want to spend big to get Teddy Bridgewater, not knowing what they're getting for their money.
You might not have to spend big, but this league, like everybody else, there's a lot of desperate, hungry teams that want a starting quarterback. I mean, I can see right now, I can see him playing for the Washington Redskins next year, especially with Kirk Cousins gone. They're going to be in need of a quarterback if they can't get nobody in the draft.
Very true. Though it's a very quarterback deep draft in this next year, but I get your meaning. Yeah. The Vikings, they're around the league average in available cap space. So I mean, with the cap continues to go up, they'll have plenty of wiggle room. It will be interesting to see. So Sam Bradford, I mean, basically what we're getting to here is that Sam Bradford, he has something to fight for. He's not just playing for a new contract. He's playing for his playing career and his starting job, which is, what really makes this interesting. None of these other quarterbacks we expect to really be, and this is why we're spending so much time on Sam Bradford, to really be in danger of losing their job. So, I mean, a lot of the wide receivers and running backs, I mean, they've got a lot of incentive there. Quarterbacks are going to get paid. So, I mean, Sam Bradford, not a guy that you're taking in your standard leagues, but if we're talking about really deep leagues, especially we're talking 2 quarterback leagues, a guy who's definitely going to get drafted. So, something to keep in mind. Just running through the other guys really fast. Drew Brees, like we talked about, he ended up transferring into kind of a 1-year deal. What are your thoughts on Drew Brees, and do you think they get a job? Wow. Do you think they get a deal done in New Orleans?
Well, with him is it's a little tricky because I think that him getting another contract is going to be tied into the success Sean Payton has this year. I mean, I think this organization has been real borderline with Sean Payton. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? And I know the NFL has all the respect in the world for Drew Brees, but I think he's starting to come to that time where you got to start thinking about the future. So I can see him getting another maybe 2-year deal, after this. But I think a lot has to be right on the success Tom Payton and these Saints have this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, again, Drew Brees, he was under contract through the 2020 season, and now he's sitting here. He's going to be playing 2017 for a $19 million cap hit, but it's going to have a $37 million dead cap. So it's very – and this is kind of honestly why I wish Ryan was here, because Ryan's, as we've always talked about, he's kind of the cap guru of the team here. He pays more attention to all these ins and outs and ways they work around things and why they do what they did to make the money work. It's a very confusing situation, and like you said, a lot of it is because they had all this money tied up into him for a very long time. It ended up, if he had played the full contract, it would have been a $108 million deal. But like you said, they're not sure about the future of Drew Brees. They're not sure about the future of Sean Payton. They're not sure about the future of the direction of the offense. So this was a deal that to the Saints made sense. Drew Brees, who's 38 years old, this made, I guess, sense to him. I mean, this is a prove-it deal, but I mean, he also worked in that there's a no trade clause and a no franchise tag clause. So he can't be franchise tagged. So he either gets a big deal or he's going to walk and go somewhere else and get a big deal. So very interesting bit of negotiating. So, I mean, honestly, Drew Brees, he is playing for his future. So, I mean, this is a guy who, we always say is one of those elite fantasy quarterbacks. Obviously, has home-road splits, indoor-outdoor splits, but 9 men have ever put up a 5,000-yard passing season, and Drew Brees is 5 of those men, if that makes any sense. So, he's done it 5 times. So, look, the guy is incredibly high volume, very accurate passing quarterback. he'll get a job, he'll get money, but he's playing for his future career and his future contract. So definitely something to take into account when it comes to your rankings. Matthew Stafford, everybody expects them to get a deal done. The question is more about amount than anything. And then we have Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins, of course, playing under the franchise tag. CJ, what are your thoughts here? Do you think, I mean, obviously he can't get signed now. The deadline has passed. So, but going, into the 2017 offseason into 2018, do you think he gets a long-term contract in Washington, or do you think he's out the door and he's heading to San Francisco?
I think that, with him, he's just basically got tired of the disrespect when it comes to Washington Redskins. I don't see him coming back just because the Washington Redskins have at least 2 years of opportunities to be able to make this get done. But they've just been hesitant for what reason, I have no idea. I mean, this dude is, like I said in previous episodes before, he's got 2,000-yard receivers last year with Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon. I mean, he bought a guy, Jamison Crowder, that we didn't really know nothing about, made him relevant. He made him a fantasy star and profitable for that offense. He's been doing nothing but pluses for this organization. I mean, got him to the playoffs when they were going through a drought, with RG3. So he's nothing, like I said, nothing but pluses. Yet they won't go ahead and get this deal done. So in his mind, he's done everything that he can do. Yet you still don't want to pay me, or you still don't respect me at this point. So I'm gonna go to organizations that want me, and we already know an organization that we continue to talk about that wants him, that pursues him, and that's San Francisco. So I think that's going to basically be his landing spot. Next off season, and he's going to be able to thrive and get the money that he deserves. That's going to be the thing.
Yep. Kyle Shanahan has openly expressed his interest in reuniting with Kirk Cousins. They spent time together in Washington. Kirk Cousins has hinted at the fact that he wants to play with Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan pioneered and designed the league's top offense last year. It all makes sense. We've talked about this extensively, so I don't want to dwell on it. We all think he's gone. Unless they set the market in Washington for Kirk Cousins, I think he's out the door. Unless they franchise tag him a third time, which would mean that they're paying him $33 million, I think, as it works out, $34 million as it currently stands. But that, of course, with new contracts, is only subject to go up. So, it's a lot of money for a one-year rental. So, we'll see. But Kirk Cousins, I don't necessarily, I mean, obviously it is a contract year, but he's got jobs lined up. He's playing for a big contract in Washington, so he's got something to play for there. Or he's going to go sign and get starter money with San Francisco. But either way, he's getting paid, and he's going to get paid again. So those are the notable quarterbacks. Obviously, some of them more fantasy relevant than others, but all of them tie into fantasy streaming options and, of course, bigger, deeper leagues, 2 quarterback leagues. You'll be using all these guys. So let's move on to some more interesting positions. We'll start at running back, where, of course, we have to start with Le'Veon Bell. We talked about him pretty extensively. Le'Veon Bell has everything to play for this season. Some would say he's already made his mark, so he doesn't need to. But Le'Veon Bell, he's got to prove that he's worth coming off multiple injuries and multiple suspensions, that he is worth what he is asking for, which, as we discussed, it was last week, I don't remember which show, but he was saying that the reason he didn't sign any of the contracts that he was offered is because he wants to set the market for running backs. He wants to get the position group as a whole paid more money. So he wants to be paid well over the $12 million a year mark is seemingly what he's looking for. He wants to be paid as an elite number 1 top tier running back and as the number 2 wide receiver on his team, all wrapped up into one contract, which he was. I mean, he had limited games last year, but he still racked up 261 rushing attempts for 1,268 yards, and was on we all know how good David Johnson was, but Le'Veon Bell was on a much better per-game basis on catches, where he had 94 targets for 75 catches for another 616 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So, in fact, I mean, it's hard to argue looking at the stats, because, of course, Antonio Brown had 106 receptions. Le'Veon Bell, 75. The next highest was Eli Rogers at 48. So he's got, unfortunately, some serious legs to stand on. It's going to be interesting to see how it kind of pans out at the end of the year. Then the next highest was Sammy Coates at 20. Oh, no, Jesse James at 39. So he's going to get paid. There's no way he doesn't get paid.
I just need him to be there. I just need him to be healthy and be there. That's the thing. I know everything that you said that is absolutely true. I mean, he's rushing. He's receiving. He is that dominant threat in that offense. But I just need him to be there. I mean, like the track record is showing. He's either suspended or injured for the season. So I need that trend to be broken and show me why you want to be that guy. I needed to be that this season. I think he's highly motivated to be able to do it because he feels a little disrespect from the Steelers. But once again, you can't blame the Steelers. So everything they're bringing to the table is factual. You're either suspended or injured. So what's up?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's... And this is why I think that Pittsburgh was trying to stand their ground and stay with their offers, and it just ended up working out. So, I mean, he's got a prove-it year, so he's got everything to play for. And, this is a guy we're taking as a top 2 pick, so I don't think we need to necessarily dwell on it. But I think this further solidifies why, people saying, is he worth it because of the injury risks, because of the suspension risks? And yes, his fantasy production has been outstanding, and people are worried about a holdout. Well, he can't afford to hold out if he wants to get paid what he's looking to get paid. And if he wants to set the market the way he does, he's going to have to go out there and prove it one more time this year. So I would say have faith in Le'Veon Bell. If he plays a full season, he will finish as a top 5 running back in fantasy. I can say that with absolute certainty. So with that, let's move on to Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde has a lot to play for, CJ. Why don't you tell me about Carlos Hyde real quick?
He has a lot to play for. One thing, you got to be healthy. I mean, you're in an organization that's been desperately trying to get rid of you. But you got you're presented with the opportunity of playing Shanahan's offense, where you've seen where he's done with two running back sets. I've been saying this before. I think this is a blessing in disguise for Carlos Hyde, just because he doesn't have to be the starter. He could be a 1A, 1B kind of scenario, just kind of like basically what Falcons were doing last year. And he could be the Tevin Coleman in this position and still be able to be productive in this offense. Because what's better, having a Carlos Hyde that still be able to get points, or an injured Carlos Hyde where you can't get no points? Of course, the one that's going to get points. So if he has opportunity to still be able to get points, not the same points that he did before because of that workload, but we've seen that his body is not being able to hold that workload that he used to have before. So to be able to split that up, I think that's going to be good for him. And if that happens, he might work his way up to, maybe a 2-3 year deal with these guys. If not, then, another place.
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison because Carlos Hyde would definitely be the big downhill runner between the two. Joe Williams is a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, but incredibly shifty. I mean, this, I don't want to get into it because we've covered this extensively. If you haven't heard, if you're just tuning in, hello, welcome. Joe Williams is a rookie that was drafted by the 49ers, where head coach Kyle Shanahan banged the table to get this guy drafted because he was the general manager, actually had him completely off their draft board. So this is Kyle Shanahan's guy, and he could easily be a very, very heavily used piece in this offense, especially with the options that they have right now at quarterback and at pass catcher in San Francisco. So Carlos Hyde, he's playing to hold on to his job. And this is a guy who people are saying are not a fit for the offense. He's bigger, so he could be a downhill threat. He could be the red zone option for them. He's been incredibly productive when healthy. Problem is, he's never healthy. He's played 14 games, 7 games, 13 games, and he was hobbled during a lot of those games that he did play throughout those 3 years. So last year of his contract, Carlos Hyde, and this is also the concern that he might end up getting cut. He's got over $1 million, about $1.2 million cap hit essentially, but if they cut him, they've only got basically $250,000 invested in him in dead cap. So he has everything to play for this year. He's playing for not just his playing career in San Francisco, but also his future contract anywhere around the league. Yeah, maybe this is a guy who, talent-wise, is easily deserving of being a higher-end paid running back. However, because of his injury history, he's going to be lucky to sign with another team for anything other than maybe a short-term prove-it deal, minimum contract, things like that. So Carlos Hyde has a ton of incentive. If he ends up making the team, and we all assume that he'll either be a complimentary piece, he might start as the lead back, or he might get cut. It could go really any ways, but it's something to monitor because he's a guy who has a lot of motivation. So if you know he's going to play 1 week and it's a good matchup, I would start him. I would start him. Let's move on to Devonta Freeman. Of course, Devonta Freeman working to get a long-term deal done as well. What are your thoughts on Devonta Freeman?
Devonta Freeman, he wants this money. He believes that he deserves this money. And I think, I agree with him, especially in the scheme. He's that dude. He's that guy. He felt disrespected bringing Tevin Coleman in there, and he proved week in and week out when you gave that man the opportunities, let him do his thing. He was that lead guy in that offense. So yep. I agree with him. I hope that he goes out there, has another great year, and be able to get that money for him.
Yep, Devonta Freeman. By all accounts, they're working to get a job done. They still believe that they can. He's on the last year of his rookie contract. Will be an unrestricted free agent, but I don't think he's going to get very far. So he's got a lot to prove to make a large chunk of money, to make as much as he would like to make. But I don't think he's worried about his playing status in the future, unless of course he gets hurt. But you could say that about anybody. So let's go ahead and move on. Eddie Lacy has everything to prove, coming off of, obviously, an injured year in 2016, now playing for a new team on a 1-year prove-it deal. Eddie Lacy, he's playing for his future contract and for big money. So just really fast, because we're already out of time, thoughts on Eddie Lacy?
I think it's going to be competition. I mean, as I said this a lot, this team is going. The money shows that they want him to be the dude. If he's that guy 2 years ago that, was setting the league on fire, having him be number one at the running back position, I think this is going to work out for him, and that he can be able to, he's with a team that's their focal point is running the ball. So this is going to be good.
Yep. I mean, Eddie Lacy, he signed a 1-year deal worth $3.5 million with enough incentives that he can make up to about a $5 million profit over the course of the year. So I mean that's pretty good money. That's around what a running back will make in the league. So he's playing for a long-term deal. He's playing for big money. He's playing for that contract, which we all thought he was going to get if you look back at 2014, but obviously 2015, 2016 were not kind to Eddie Lacy, though his rushing totals are definitely there to back up what the player that we used to see. It's just putting it all together. He's on a new team. He's got the opportunity. He's going to have to compete for starting jobs. He has motivation like crazy. So we thought Eddie Lacy was motivated last year. Going into 2016, he put up over 5.1 yards per carry. Let's see what he does now on a new team with a lot of motivation as well. But of course, you have to be concerned that he's in a new place. So that's kind of That's the one hesitation with Eddie Lacy as compared to a lot of these other guys who are trying to get contracts done while playing for their home team. Isaiah Crowell, he, of course, is playing for a contract as well. Isaiah Crowell, a guy that we are very high on as a show right now. CJ, talk to me about Isaiah Crowell.
Isaiah Crowell, we saw what he did with last year, and then this offense winning the offseason and addressing some issues, securing that offensive line, bringing in some new bodies there. Now, the only thing that's going to probably hinder him is just the quarterback position. I mean, I think that he might be up for the Todd Gurley Award, this upcoming season, just because if they don't trust the passing game, they're gonna do their best to stack the box and stop that running game and force on the pass. Yep. So between this bidding war between Kessler and Cody Kessler and Kaiser. Hopefully the best quarterback wins, and they can be able to move the ball and be able to make this offense passing game productive. So then Isaiah Crowell can go out there and have a good year like we expect.
Absolutely. He signed a 1-year deal worth just under $3 million. So he'll be an unrestricted free agent. He's on a prove-it deal. They've upgraded the offensive line drastically. We don't think the quarterback situation is going to be great. The wide receivers obviously are developmental. Isaiah Crowell has basically everything in front of him to put up a great season, and he has all the drive to do so because he's playing for his future as, and definitely as getting a good contract in the future and as a running back in this league. So I really like Isaiah Crowell this year. We all do, and this extra motivation is also what's moving him up our draft boards, which is why we contest to you guys that you should be as high on him as we are. But we know everyone won't be, but we'll see how it plays out. So last running back, Jeremy Hill. I mean, it goes without saying. Jeremy Hill is on the last year of a deal. He's been drastically underwhelming as a player since his rookie year. He has to prove everything, but now he has to deal with Joe Mixon being in town. So he's got to make the most of his touches. Your thoughts, CJ, really fast?
He's playing for his job in the NFL. I think after this year, he's out of Cincy.
I mean, he's still one of the best red zone backs in the league. I think he lands on his feet somewhere in a limited role. But, yeah, I don't see any way that Cincinnati keeps him. They're not going to pay him very much to stay there, especially if Joe Mixon ends up panning out to be what we all expect him to be, which is a true elite talent in the league. So he's got a lot to play for, Jeremy Hill. So this is, of course, a guy that's we all think is going still a little bit too high, but, He's motivated. Let's move on to wide receivers. Now we have a whole bunch of guys. We're already out of time, so we're going to try and get through these guys kind of rapid fire. Number 1, we have Alshon Jeffrey. Obviously, he took a 1-year prove-it deal. He has everything to prove because he's betting on himself. He thought he was worth a lot more than what he was getting offered, so he wants to go out there and prove that he can be healthy, that he can be productive, that he can be worth that wide receiver 1 money, and so he's on a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see if he gets it done. Your thoughts real fast, CJ?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I mean, if everything works out with him and Carson Wentz, like everything's going on in training camp right now, this might be a good year for him, and he's probably got a good contract with the Eagles.
Yep. All right. With that, let's move on to Sammy Watkins. Now, Sammy Watkins is an interesting case. Sammy Watkins, the Buffalo Bills elected not to pick up his 5th-year option on his contract, so he will be an unrestricted free agent. This is a guy who we've said extensively is a true elite wide receiver talent, but because he is in Buffalo, because he can't stay healthy, it's not been truly realized. But, this is potentially good news because Sammy Watkins, he's now going to have the opportunity, unless he gets franchise tagged, to sign anywhere he wants. So he's got to go out there and he's got to prove that he is worth the money that we all think the talent, and I think the league believes that the talent is there and worth paying for. But he's been trending really, really negatively. He went from 16 games to 13 games to 8 games. It's a bad trend, but by all accounts, he's healthy right now, and he's playing for his future. What are your thoughts here, real fast, EJ?
Gotta stay healthy. That's the main thing. He's gotta stay healthy. Just like you said, the talent is there. But if I'm an NFL team, I'm looking at him. I'm just like, if he stays healthy, I'm willing to pay the money. But if he's not, he's a risk and liability.
I agree. Man, it sucks because health is not that thing you can very easily project, but you got to do it. Let's move on to DeAndre Hopkins. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, this is an interesting situation. Now, he has been healthy. He's played all 16 games, all 4 years of his career, so that's huge. But the problem here, of course, is that DeAndre Hopkins is dealing with crap at the quarterback position. So, I mean, he's got to prove that he is quarterback proof. So he has all the motivation to go out there and be as productive as humanly possible this year. And I think he has the tools to make it happen. This is the 5th year of his contract. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this. He's playing for his big contract coming off his rookie year. Your thoughts really fast, CJ?
Yeah, this is going to be a really big year for him. I mean, he's got to be able to get that, him and his quarterback getting that flavor going on. If that's the case, then this is going to be a good year for him to be able to get some good money.
Yeah, I mean, I would say realistically, we're looking at a guy who's going to be in the 70 catch range and can get you 1,000 yards. Touchdowns, probably somewhere around 5 or 6, and that's good production. But if he's able to turn, and that's with his kind of career averages. That's a pretty good stat line. If you can turn that up into the next year and get you closer to that 2015 where he got you 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns, I don't think he gets there, honestly, just because of the quarterback situation. A lot of that production was based on the defense sucking, so they were playing from behind. And CJ, you and I, we debated this extensively going into the 2016 season, but the talent is there. So he's playing for his future. He's playing for his first big contract. He has all the motivation in the world. So DeAndre Hopkins, if you're on the fence about him, know that Brock Osweiler is no longer there, and he is motivated to do better. Allen Robinson is the next guy on the list. Now, Allen Robinson, he had that huge breakout year in 2015. We all expected the regression. It hit a lot harder than we thought it would because of Blake Bortles. He has to prove that he is able to overcome double coverages, which was something that gave him trouble last year. Besides, they crap at the quarterback play, the quarterback position with the play from Blake Bortles. Al Robinson, a lot to prove to show that he was not a one-year wonder. Your thoughts real fast?
I feel bad for him, man, because he can't throw himself the ball. So
True.
It's all going to be on Blake Bortles and, his development, and so he can be able to earn his money because the talent is there, but he just can't throw himself the ball. I feel bad for him.
That's what it boils down to. So Allen Robinson, who is a second-round pick, so he doesn't have a fifth-year option, he will be an unrestricted free agent. Lots of motivation to go out there and reproduce on the level of his 2015 year. So that's why a lot of analysts like myself, maybe blindly, I wouldn't say blindly, but are overly buying into Allen Robinson again this year. Next, we have Jarvis Landry, who has been one of the best PPR wide receivers in the league, and there's a lot of mouths to feed, and the second year in that Adam Gase system, Jarvis Landry, he's got to keep it going if he wants that big contract. What are your thoughts, CJ?
Yeah, he's going to be able to do it. I don't think it's going to be in Miami. Miami has shown that, they're a little leery of their highest paid wide receiver being a slot guy, but the dude's productive.
Understandable, though.
So, yeah, I understand it, but the dude's productive. And when you put him in that offense, looking compared to everybody else you got on there outside of the running game, this is the most productive, reliable piece that you have in this offense. So you got to pay him.
I honestly, I think they will because I don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to be set the market level money. I don't think that, and they've got a couple years on Jay Ajayi they've got some defensive guys they want to shore up, but as a whole, they have the 10th most cap space right now. So they've got the wiggle room. They've got the money. I think they honestly get it done because this is a guy who's been very productive for them over the years. And Jarvis Landry, you invested a second-round pick on this guy. You're going to want to keep him. He's been good for you. So he's got to prove it. He's got to stay active because, like you said, they don't want to pay the slot guy that kind of money. So he's got to prove that he's worth it. Same with this next guy, Jordan Matthews. Now, they brought a lot of wide receivers in to make up the difference because of, I don't want to say lack of production at the position because it was also quarterback play.
Lack of talent. Just a lack of talent there.
Yeah. So Jordan Matthews, he's got a lot to prove to show that he's worth a good contract here. So real fast, Jordan Matthews, your thoughts?
Well, listen, this is a tough situation. I mean, I think he's going to end up basically playing for his NFL career, with another team. Because if Alshon Jeffrey has a good year, which to be expected, Philadelphia Eagles are probably most likely going to pay him. And, I don't see this team investing that much money in the wide receiver position and be able to keep both of these guys. And there's a lot of talent that they drafted and even unrestricted free agents that they like in this wide receiver position. So I can see Jordan Matthews either walking or them, trying to do a trade for him.
He's never reached 1,000 yards. He's never had more than 8 touchdowns, and that's because he was a slot guy trying to play outside, new quarterback last year. All the weapons, all the distractions, all the reasons for him to play very well this year. I mean, they could save a lot of money by cutting him this year, but I mean, as I've mentioned previously, I think Nelson Aguilar and I think that Torrey Smith would be the first ones to go because Jordan Matthews has that rapport. He's got that time spent. They like him there by all accounts. So, he's definitely playing for his future. He has a lot to prove because he's not lived. A lot of people would say he's not lived up to that second round pick value, and being a bigger guy who thrives in the slot has also been kind of confusing. So he's got a lot to prove this year. So if he plays really well, he could get some other players cut, and he could be upping his production right off the bat. But it remains to be seen. Jordan Matthews, a lot of motivation, and a guy who you can get incredibly late in drafts, and especially if somebody goes down in front of him, there's some value right there. Next guy, we have John Brown. Now, John Brown, he's got to prove that he also can stay healthy. He's got to prove that he's worth being the successor, as Jason always likes to say, to Larry Fitzgerald as the number one target in Arizona, and that he's just able to just put it all together. Real fast, John Brown, your thoughts?
You guys are a lot higher on him than I am, but, just like you said, he's the focal point of that offense when it comes to the receiving core, because just that deep threat ability and his elusiveness, but health is a big concern. So, he has to be able to show it, just like you said. And if he does, then he's going to be able to get that money. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald is not going to be there forever.
No, we all expect this to be his last year. So, John Brown, like I don't want to get into it because we've covered this extensively with Jason on the show. We do that quite often. He's played basically the whole year, but obviously he's played very hobbled. A speedster, burner, wide receiver, a shorter guy, but I mean he's got just breakneck speed. So he's got to prove that he can be more than that. He's got to prove that he can stay healthy, and he's like we said, he has to prove that he can be the guy in Arizona, because they're going to be losing their probably all-pro wide receiver after the season, so they're going to have a void to fill, and he's just happens to be coming up on his big contract year this year, so he has a lot to prove. Last two wide receivers really fast. We have Martavis Bryant and Dante Moncrief. Pretty similar stories here. They're both kind of boom-bust guys. Martavis Bryant, of course, coming off suspension. Still hasn't been fully reinstated, by the way. Dante Moncrief has to show he can stay healthy. So both these guys need to prove just exactly that they can stay on the field. And, these guys both have a lot of upside. What are your thoughts real fast on these guys?
Moncrief is great upside, with him and Andrew Luck. He's been that guy. They have that great chemistry going on there. Just need to take his game to, just take it up a little notch, be a little more consistent. And then Martavis Bryant, he's been kind of like that Jenga piece for the Steelers offense, and then making everything go. And he's very elusive wide receiver. So both of these guys have an opportunity to up their draft stock with their teams and be able to get some nice deals.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot to play for. They're playing for their first big contract, both of these guys. So they've got to show that they can put it all together, because that's going to be the difference between getting a middle-of-the-road contract and making big money. Wow, we are so far over. So tight ends, really fast. We have Tyler Eifert, who he's got to show that he can stay healthy. This is a big contract year for him because he's looking to make some serious money. Your thoughts on Tyler Eifert real fast?
Tyler Eifert, he has extreme talent. He has a great relationship with Andy Dalton. He's very productive in the offense when he's healthy, just like you said. So if he does that, I can see him getting a nice, I don't want to say very lucrative deal, but a nice, okay deal with the Bengals.
Yep, his contract's fully guaranteed this year, so that must be nice. But I mean, he's looking for his first big contract. He's coming off his rookie contract, which I think, for some reason, I feel like most people believe that he's been in the league a lot longer than he has been. Maybe it's because it took him a while to kind of break out and stay healthy. But I mean, he was taken in the first round in 2013. He's the 21st overall pick, and he's got to prove that he's worth it. He's been a great red zone weapon. Not so great as far as volume and yardage, so he's got to put it all together. He's got to stay healthy. But, I mean, big contract year for him. He's got all the motivation in the world to try and make that happen. Next, we have Jimmy Graham. Your thoughts on Jimmy Graham real fast?
Jimmy Graham, I just need to see a little more. I mean, it seems like each year he's been with Seattle, he's getting better and better and getting a little more into the offense, getting a little more chemistry with Russell Wilson. But I just need to see a little more. And I think Seattle's going to have to see it, too, for him to be able to get that good tight end money that he wants to be able to get with Seattle.
Jimmy Graham, I mean, holy crap. He's got a $10 million cap hit this year, but only $2 million dead cap, so I don't think they're going to cut him, but that's insane. Yeah, he's got to put it all together. And, he came back from injury, serious patellar injury. He started putting it together. He's getting a rapport with Russell Wilson, so I think if he's able to continue to show it, he's going to keep getting paid because he's only 30 years old. We see other tight ends around the league who have another 4 to 5 years on him that are still being very productive because that's the position. So he's got to prove that he's still that guy. He's still that amazing elite tight end. For us, it's for fantasy. For NFL, it's just in real life. And I think he's going to continue to be the main red zone pass catching weapon there in Seattle. So I really like the opportunity of Jimmy Graham, a guy who you can get shockingly late, honestly. And then the last guy we had here was kind of a joke. We had Antonio Gates, and he's on the last year of his contract, but we all expect him to retire. So motivation, but not really. He's retiring. So I guess with that, let's get out of here. Woo, we are over. So that's going to do it for us today. Please make sure you guys tune in on Friday when we will be getting to our ever requested. We covered this many, many months ago, back in I think April or May, and now we're in draft season. We're getting to our consensus rankings. So we will be starting with our quarterback position on Friday. So don't miss it. This is going to be one of those shows you're going to want to save. You're going to want to bookmark. As always, please make sure you guys listen and give us our iTunes listener review. That was horribly done. iTunes listener review challenge. If you want to play against us in fantasy football, make sure you guys subscribe to the show, give us a rating, give us a review. At the end of your review, leave us a Twitter handle or a Facebook. What is wrong with me, CJ? An email address so that we can reach you if you are selected. I mean, guys, if you want to play against us in fantasy football, it's pretty easy. And I know people want to do it elsewhere, and we appreciate the feedback all over the place, but because of agreements we have with iTunes, with other various sources and outlets, we got to do it there this year, guys. I know there's been some feedback, but, it is what it is. And, we want to play against you. So, again, iTunes, rating, and review. That's it. So easy. Make sure you guys keep coming back every Tuesday, Friday. We're not just here through draft season. We're here through the entire regular season, giving you starts and sits, waiver wire additions, all types of things of that nature. Of course, all the news, updates, injuries, things all over the league. And, of course, if you want to follow us, the show is at the FF Fanatics. You can follow us individually. I'm at G Palmer FFF. CJ's at CJ Hickman 89. So with that, we're going to move on to our Patreon show, which this week we're going to be doing a 2-quarterback mock draft. Ooh, a little bit tricky. So any parting thoughts before we sign off, CJ?
Well, guys, I appreciate all the love and support you guys been giving to the show. If it wasn't for you guys, we'd just be a couple crazy guys just talking bull crap about football.
I mean, we are that. So.
Yeah, we are that. We are those guys. But you just give us a platform and you give us an audience, and we love it. Love and appreciate you. Appreciate all my new followers, and shout out to JC, being Father of the Year, Senior Pinata.
All right. Don't follow that, but all right, well done. So, everyone, take care. Have a great week. We'll see you on the Patreon show. If not, we will see you on Friday when we're going to get into these rankings. Take care. Bye.